Good evening, everyone. I hope my voice is pretty audible. Cool. Uh, I raised the hand when you mentioned the Book My Show story because of another reason, not because I saw your slide. I will tell you in the upcoming slides. Okay, so let's talk about success-centered design. Sometimes I forget who I am. So I created some slides to remind myself who I am. Let me share that slides with you. Uh, so I am a traditional artist. So from my father's family, we are into fine arts business. We do sculpting, painting, artworks. So it's in my hometown in Kerala. My brother is doing that right now. So that is one of my background. And I'm also a performing artist from my mother's side. So I have a theater background. Also, I'm a mimicry artist. Before coming into design field, I spent 2 years researching about art and archaeology in Indian Institute of Science, exactly National Institute of Advanced Studies in Bangalore. And then I came to design field. I have an academic background of computer engineering. Uh, uh, my what I do a lot of things, and I consider myself as a versatilist. My profession is product design, and I also a design thinker and a facilitator. The second image is from Book My Show, where in Book My Show office we have an amphitheater. So this is from the design thinking workshop I conducted in 2022. And I'm also a community member in design communities. This is Interaction Design Foundation. We were having a volunteer group. Since past 7 years, I am part of that. It's not so active right now, but it was very active before the pandemic. And institutionalization of design. So all of you who are working for an IT company have experienced this. When you are going to the tech team, product team, you need to uh, teach them what is design. So some people may call you a Photoshop designer. You had this, and in my previous company, once when the reporting structure, the organization structure changed, my reporting manager became an engineer manager, and then I have to talk to the HR team. No, I am not something coming under the engineering group. I am a product designer. I will either come into the product team or design team. So you need to make a lot of awareness about design. So the practice of that is called institutionalization of design, where you have to do a lot of other activities outside your design work. For example, the meetup, your talks, sharing articles about design, talking about design, giving examples, a panel discussion. So many other activities you have to do to teach your fellow colleagues and partners about the importance of design. And that is also required to raise the bar of your design maturity for your company. I'm also a logo collector. I'm just kidding. These all are the companies where I worked for. Uh, so I was a researcher in National Institute of Advanced Studies. Then I started my design career in the growth team of Cloud9, which is into healthcare domain. Then e-commerce, e-learning platform Simply Learn. Then I worked for enterprise companies for 4.5 years. One was Unboxed and one was Noodle.ai. So Unbox is primarily helping the e-commerce companies to help their product discovery. For example, Big Basket or Decathlon, Nika. So mid and small e-commerce companies to provide a good product search experience and product discovery experience. And we have redesigned in my tenure almost 40 e-commerce companies. Search has been redesigned from this platform. And Noodle.ai was an enterprise AI company. which serves products to manufacturing, supply chain, and logistic company. Book My Show, obviously, that's why I raised my hand. And the story of Ashish about rugby booking was inspiring for all of us in Book My Show. Uh, then, previous to, after Book My Show, I was working for a mental health startup called Urban Health, and currently I'm in Hinge Health. How many of you are designers here? Please raise your hand. That 90% of you are designers. Okay. Any UX researchers? Okay, only two. Product managers? No. Engineers? Awesome. Any other field? Okay. Any psychologist here? No. Okay. Okay. So the question to the design is, whom do you design for? Whom do you design for? You are a designer? Okay. Who is the designer here? Somebody raised? 90% people raised hand. You are a designer, sir? For the users. Okay. Anybody who is designing for the CEO or the business? No one. Okay. So nobody is here designing for the CEO. So in reality, you need to do both. You need to do design for your business and for the users. And that is success-centered design is all about. And I'll come to the details in moving slides. You're familiar with this experiment? Anybody familiar with this experiment? Who's that? Anyone? Okay. This is called the Columbia obstruction device. And this is an experiment started in 1940s by Columbia University. That's why this name came from. It is basically a psychological behavioral science test to understand the motivation behind animals to do certain things. So we all are animals, and by researching animals, we can also find what motivates humans also. So this device, there is a mouse and there is a box and there is an electric shock. So this mouse has to tolerate this electric shock to get this cheese. So what the experiment is about increasing the electric shock and increasing and decreasing the cheese. They have done both. So what they have found is when the cheese size is significantly bigger compared to the electric shock, the mouse is happy to go through the electric shock and get the cheese. When you reduce the cheese size, the mouse is not motivated. Similarly, when you reduce the electric shock, increase the electric shock, then also the mouse is not motivated. So there should be a ratio where the cheese has to be big enough so that the mouse needs to travel all over the electric shock. So it is similar. When you build a product, it is similar. The mouse is similar to your user. The entire box is your product. This electric shock is the effort your users need to put to use your product. So the effort can be the cost they are paying, the price they are paying, the learning curve. So they need to learn your application, they need to learn your software, they need to put some time to use this product. And the cheese is the benefit the user is getting from your product. So it's simple. The cheese is big enough, the benefit is good enough, your users will be happy to use your product and pay for your product and spend time for your product. So let's take this success-centered design from a case study. This is a project I did for my previous startup called Urban Health, and Urban Health was into mental health platform. So it was a 3-year-old company, and we wanted to have a complete redesign, and with our new business model initiative. So the problem statement was we already learned about certain scope, and already we know some of the issues users are facing. And user search, it's an iOS app primarily, and it's available in Android also. So we wanted to get into a very scientific application. We wanted to have a very scientific based application. So the problem was, earlier we had this application and it was mostly a mindful app for the users. It was looking similar to Headspace, Calm, and other mindfulness app. So we want to change from that direction to get into mental health, which is clinically proven research. So that was the problem statement. So there are some recipes or mantras we can say for success-centered design. And the first thing is prioritize your goals. So when you go for a redesign or a design project, there are a lot of things come into the picture, but you may not be able to achieve everything. But you need to prioritize certain things which are the must-have. So for us, we had a lot of objectives, but the primary objective was we wanted to increase the engagement, the first 14 days engagement, because if the user is engaging enough 14 days and coming back to the app for 14 days, is more likely to convert as a paid user. And also, it was giving a look and feel of the mindfulness app, and we want to move from that and to get a complete look and feel of clinical mental health app experience. And the third is to show scientific results, you need to track the results. To find the mental health improvement, you need to track the mental health score of the user. So that is also something you need to add to the mindfulness app. And there are other objectives also we had, but we focused on these things. It's a small startup of 30 plus members. Still, there is good amount of stakeholders in this project. Especially, we had a psychologist who she was helping us with scientific knowledge and how things are working in the mental health field. In-depth user research. So I don't need to tell you about the importance of user research, but the important point is you don't need to do projects to learn about your users. Your founders knows a lot about your users. And when I joined, I had a user researcher in my team. She joined around 8 9 months before, and already 30 user testing and user interviews already done. So we had ample amount of information about the user that can be used for this project. So you don't need to start a new project to find about the users, learn about the users. You can start from what you have. So another project I already did before this project was the onboarding redesign. And we did test. We had a summative user testing for this, and we did test with 10 users. And we had the research information already. Then 30 historical user interviews we already did, and user exit feedback. When the user decide uh, to not to continue as a paid user, they give this feedback when they exit. That also we had. And app reviews, Google Play Store reviews we had, and also the analytics data. So we were every day we were spending an ample amount of time in Amplitude to find how the users are doing in our app. So that also we had. And also the UX audit, which is a common practice for the product designers. When you reach certain experience, you know the basics, you know the heuristics. You can actually do a UX audit of all the experience and log all the issues which you can find in that application. There are some user problems also we identified, which I already mentioned. The look and feel was one thing. Accessibility was another thing. This is again, this is primarily the market is USA, not India. So accessibility is very important, and our major chunk of users are above 30s and above 40s. So accessibility is very important. And also, we wanted to focus on long-term solutions. So we found that we have enough content, the mindfulness content like mental health, mindful music, other motivation videos that was already there, which is giving a short-term solution. But we were not having a long-term solution which we can track. So that was something we wanted to introduce new. So this was our existing home before the redesign. We had a tracker and we had daily suggestions. And then we also have breathing animations and inspirational quotes, and also recents and favorites, where when a user is doing some action, we show that again. And we also found that recents and favorites have a good amount of engagement. Anybody here using mental health app? Seems like a new piece here. Anybody? No, no one is using mental health app. Okay, anyone using mindfulness app, meditation? Okay, people are very healthy people, not like me. Okay, so the um, third mantra is define your brand. So Urban Health was my fourth startup. So one of the mistakes most of the startups do is they focus on the product. So they focus on building the product, solving the user issues, and go to the product market, go to the market and find a product market fit. Then they think about the branding. And in my experience before Urban Health, we had I have 2 or 3 rebranding experience. The rebranding means once the company finds some market fit, they get some investment and they start refreshing the brand, spending some time and effort and money to the brand and redesign the logo, defining the color palette and the language, tone of voice, everything. What that was that is some of the mistakes most of the startups do. So since I already had the experience of that, I decided not to have that experience here. So I started with defining the brand and building a brand before going into the product design complete refresh. You're familiar with brand archetypes? Brand archetypes? Okay. So there are 12 brand archetypes. You can find most of the companies in the world belonging to any of these one particular archetypes. And you can see Apple is a creator, Dove is innocent, Sage, BBC, Google is also coming there. So your all the type of brands will fit into one or two of these archetypes. So if you decide which direction you need to take, it will be very easy to define your brands. So in our case, we chose caregiver as a brand archetype. And when you choose caregiver as an archetype, you can define your brand promise, brand motto, some of the keywords that goes with your brand, also the tagline, tone of voice, all the thing you can decide because you already have an archetype in your mind. So that brand redesign. So I created an entire brand guidelines, and we chose. We were having a blue color as a brand primary brand color before, and when we looked at the competitors and major players in the market, the top 5 players, most of them already have blue and other colors. So we wanted to stand out in the market, especially on the top market, and we chose green as our primary color. So nobody was having green as our primary color. So that's why green was picked as a primary brand color. And we did a complete design system change, and which was covering the issues which I was referring to, the accessibility, the look and feel of a mindfulness app, um, the lack of contrast in the UI, those all were addressed in the design system redesign. Experiment and learn. So that is the fourth mantra I can say. In a startup, you move very fast. So in the case of urban health, we were having weekly release. Do you have any experience of weekly release? So that means Monday I get a requirement, Tuesday I come up with a design, Tuesday we'll have a review, and Wednesday we'll lock the designs, and Thursday is our handoff, dev handoff. And if there are any issues with the handoff, we'll cover it in the Friday. And the dev will have 1 week sprint, and within 1 week this will be live. So we were going on a that that kind of pace we were going, and not like the 2 week sprint, which is common in agile world. So for this project also we wanted to do some experiment, and we already had some learning from the previous project. For example, we tried some gamification when the user completes a mindfulness content session, or and they then we show this gamification nicely done, and we also try to give some app currency like health points, and we added some motion graphics in the previous experiment that also found very successful, and it increased the engagement. So from this previous experience, we come up with a hypothesis. So to do any experiment, you need to have a hypothesis. So our hypothesis was, we believe that making the app experience more delightful, dynamic, and reducing content. So we were having a long scroll. We wanted to reduce the number of widgets, and that's why will reducing content will improve the user engagement and retention, and we'll get to know the results from the core engagement data. That was our hypothesis, and we went with this hypothesis and did some redesign. Obviously, we took some competitor analysis, how the other competitors, similar platforms are doing, not exactly the mental health application, which are direct competitors. So Calm is one thing, Insight Timer, YouTube Music, and Spotify. This was the first version of the designs where we introduced bigger cards instead of the smaller cards we used to have, and it had a dynamic carousel. Uh, After a 30-second, not 30 seconds, 5 seconds, it will change. And also, when you scroll, only 3 cards are there. The entire long scroll we reduced. So the fifth thing, the last thing is about the mantra of success-centered design, which I have to tell you, according to my experience, is bias for action. So I think most of you are in your early career or maybe in mid career. This is something reality. You won't be happy on the designs which went live. You're working with different collaborators and stakeholders. Obviously, different perspectives will be there, and every perspective and decisions are right from their perspective. But you need to have some trade-off to come up to an end. In a faster moving startup world, you need to take decision very faster. Then only you can move forward. It is okay to fail. So there are some kind of biases we wanted to take. One is, should we go with a card was getting a cut because it was very large card, but everyone liked it. Should we go with 2 cards which is showing in the first load, or do we need to have a, there was a Gaussian blur, glass blur was there, and which we decided not to go with because it was giving more, the second version was giving more contrast. So we went with these versions. Outcome, anybody can guess the outcome? Very silent people. According to your experience, or just Take a wild guess. How many of you think this was a success? Okay. Thanks for supporting me. Okay. How many of you think we failed? So many support again. Okay. Thank you for trusting me. We failed. That's a reality. So this was a very fruitful experience, fruitful experiment. Uh, we learned a lot from this experiment. For example, the outcomes we were targeting was not achieved, especially the engagement. Also, the daily plan was something very successful in our previous version that was reported all time low, and also the amount of content engagement also went down. But we learned a couple of things. For example, we introduced recents and favorites icon on the top bar as a new enhancement that was getting a good number of engagement. So a couple of learnings are there, but we did not stop there. We went to the second experiment. In the second experiment, considering consolidating all the learnings we have, we reduced the cart size. We went with two and a quarter of the cards, and then we pushed the daily tracker one side, one step below, where we introduce the gamification points again upfront, and then some contrasting colors we tried for the other widgets. Uh, so this is the mental health score tracking, where when a user is onboarding for the first time, they will answer a set of questions. For example, if it is anxiety disorder, they will answer the questions called GAD7. And if it is depression, there is a psychology questionnaire called PHQ-9. Similarly, there are other questionnaires also used for specific mental health score, and that will be again asked after 14 days. So 14 days, the user needs to be there for 14 days to do this second assessment. And then we will compare the first assessment and the second assessment. If the points are going low, it's an effectiveness because your mental issues are going low, and that we consider as effectiveness. And also, we introduce some learnings since we are introducing those features for the first time. And also, when they click on this, if they are clicking on the sleep, they will get sleep content suggestion. If they're clicking on the walk, they will get the walk related content suggestion. And the second experiment, we succeed. That's a good news. Someone was showing some trust on me. Uh, Thank you so much. So the second experiment, we succeeded, and we got a good engagement, and the 14-day engagement, which was our one of the North Star, that also increased. Retention also increased. Session completion rate also increased, and we got a more assessment of the users, and we achieved 80 plus effectiveness, which is required if you go for FDA, Food and Drugs Association in US, similar to India. There are some bodies to approving your quality of your product. For example, there is a domain called digital therapeutics. Are you familiar with that? Anyone? Digital therapeutics means you are selling software as a medicine. So for this case, we are giving a mental health application as a cure for your mental health problems. So it can come under DTX, which is digital therapeutics. Also, we learned more about the user and we started creating in-house content. Before that, we were actually outsourcing in content. So these are my five mantras or recipe for success-centered design. Prioritize your goals, and do in-depth user research. It can come from anywhere. Talk to everyone in the company when you join a new company, talk to everyone, and ask them what they know about the user. Founders know ample amount of things. Define your brand. This is something missing in most of the startups. Experiment and learn is a very common thing. And bias for action. So this is something you need to accept as a reality. You need to take calls, even if you are not happy with the design. Let's commit and disagree and commit, because you need to have some evidence to support your decision. This is good or bad. Otherwise, just leave it. Cool. That's all from me. Thank you so much. It's an amazing crowd, silent crowd, very intellectual people.